I'm Maddie and this is Let's Talk Home Edition. I'm here with Kelley, who's going to be talking to us today about sleep. So Kelley, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure, good morning. My name is Kelley Osman. I'm a mental health nurse who specialises in child and adolescent mental health.
Why do we need sleep?
We need sleep for every possible reason you can imagine. Sleep is essential for our emotional health, our physical health, and our general well-being. And it's the one thing that we cannot do without.
So how much sleep do we need to be getting?
Well, currently we think that we need between at least 7 and 9 hours of sleep every night consistently. And even changes in that by a small amount can have a real impact on either our physical or emotional well-being.
What kind of impact does that have on our emotional well-being if we don't have enough sleep?
Well, on our emotional well-being, not having enough sleep can impact on how we react to certain situations. It can affect how we think about certain situations, and it can also impact our ability to perform emotionally. So we might be a little bit more reactive to situations, or we might make impulsive decisions. It also affects us emotionally on our interactions with other people, which obviously have longer term effects and impacts on how we are as humans, because we interact all the time in many, many different ways.
How does that affect our physical health as well?
When it comes to the physical elements of sleep, sleep is when we grow. Sleep is also when we heal. And it doesn't just mean heal injuries. You know, there's different stages of sleep where there's cell rejuvenation. There's also an incredible thing that happens in sleep, which is like a detox. And that happens emotionally. You know, we work through what's happened in the day and our brain kind of sorts it all out. But physically, there's a big release of toxins in certain aspects of our sleep. And that helps in all areas of our health. There's also a particular part of the sleep cycle where our blood pressure reduces and our heart rate reduces. And that's essential for our cardiovascular health. So by having those stages of sleep, we're looking after all different elements of our bodies. And if you think we're a baby and how much sleep a baby has, we know that that is essential for their development, their physical development. And actually, our bodies continue to develop and change as we grow. And even when we're in older age, there are different difficulties with our brains, such as Alzheimer's and different challenges. But our body still needs to repair, rejuvenate, and that happens during sleep and only happens during sleep, really. So if we're thinking about our immunity, we know that people with really good immunity and strong immunity are often some of our best sleepers. So we look after our bodies through sleep. And that's that opportunity where people are more responsive to vaccines or flu jabs or any medicines they're taking. If they're sleeping well, that's when our body's allowed to kind of sort it all out.
What causes bad sleep?
Lots of things can impact our sleep. There can be physical reasons for bad sleep. So it might be problems with our bodies. It might be that we're uncomfortable. It could be that we've done some kind of artificial things to ourselves during the day, for example, how much caffeine we've had, or whether we've been very active and very stimulated. It can also be that our environment isn't what we call conducive to sleep. So we need to start thinking, I'll talk about tips in a minute, but we need to make sure that we give ourselves what's called a good sleep opportunity. So instead of trying to cram sleep into a thing that we must just get bare minimum of, if we don't give enough attention or enough importance to sleep, then that can have an impact as well. Our daily lives impact our sleep, and I think one of the most important things to understand is that everything we do in our waking day affects our sleep time as well. So it's not only what we eat and drink, which is of course of huge importance to how our bodies react to sleep, but also how stimulated we are, or how much technology we've used, or what we're doing particularly in those couple of hours before sleep. So if we've been really stimulated, or we've used a lot of tech, or we've eaten late, they can also have an impact. I think what we're learning more and more is that one of the biggest blockers of us sleeping well can be stress and anxiety. And that kind of can sit hand in hand with our use of technology, because we know that technology can produce things in us which make us perhaps feel more stimulated or more stressful. But also our culture of using a phone very early in the morning to check what's gone on, that can give us almost like a predictive anxiety. So we can wake up expecting to have to check that. So there are many factors which can affect our sleep, but particularly as well as our environment and how we live currently. Our bedrooms can be our offices, they can be our gyms, they can be our restaurants, they can be all of these things. And the element of importance that we put to them, but I like to call it a sleep palace. So if we can go back to thinking that that room should predominantly and primarily be about sleep, then that can be helpful too. But I think there's some of the things that what we call inhibit our sleep onset. You know, they can delay us falling into this lovely sleep cycle which we need.
What tips do you have to improve our sleep?
Well, if we're looking if we look emotionally at what can help with our sleep, so giving ourselves the opportunity to sleep emotionally can be things like doing our emails earlier, you know, doing our kind of our things which are going to stimulate our brains, or things we need to sort out for our emotional health, doing a bit earlier. Emotionally as well, we need to be telling ourselves, changing our mindset about sleep. So framing it as something really positive. So you're not lazy if you have lots of sleep. If we change our brain and thinking, no, I'm doing something as important as going to the gym and as important as drinking water and eating well or exercising, we're prioritizing sleep. So changing our mindset, I think, is really important. Alongside that, there are the environmental things that we can do to help our sleep. So decluttering. So when I'm saying, you know, perhaps moving our gym equipment out of our bedroom, or if we're studying, for example, having a separate workspace. We know we have to work in our bedrooms. It's kind of how it is. It's part of our evolution, I think. But if we can, you know, not do that on our bed, particularly keeping our bed almost sacred. So when I'm working with lots of teenagers, I'm aware they have to study at home, and they've been studying at home this year more than we've ever seen. But if we can keep a work zone off the bed, away from the bed, so our brains kind of make that real clear distinction that our bed is for sleeping and relaxing, and our workspace is for working. That doesn't mean that we shouldn't read in bed. Actually, it's proven that reading is really helpful for us because it shuts our brain down to all the other things that's going on. But reading a book, because there's lots of studies to show us that even reading on an iPad or a lit device still delays our sleep because it's actually waking up different bits of our brain physically. But if we can read something, you know, potentially boring, not that exciting, but will tire us out, then that can be really, really helpful. So I think the environment is essential. And I think preparing ourselves to sleep, so not eating too late, having a bath can be really beneficial, not just because it relaxes our muscles and it, again, brain training, it's telling us we're preparing for bed like we do with babies. You know, we have a bath and then we have a bottle and then they kind of know we're going to sleep. With ourselves, if we can have a bath and tell ourselves we're going to sleep, not nice comfy pajamas or whatever, but also there's a temperature drop when you come out of the bath. And that can be really useful in promoting melatonin, which is one of our sleep hormones, or one of the hormones that we need for sleep. So it kind of kick-starts that. So having your bedroom a little bit cooler and getting a little bit chilly before you get into bed is actually a physiological way of preparing ourselves to sleep. But things like that we can do. So limiting the tech, trying not to be anxious or worried before bed, or doing something to help with that, something calming, having the decluttered space, and reframing how we think about sleep can be really helpful.
Where can people find out more information?
Well, I've got a website, Kelley Osman Consultancy and Observation, and there's some little bits on there on sleep, but I'm always happy to talk in more detail, particularly I think supporting teenagers with their sleep, because their sleep cycles are different, and we see that they are different. They are biologically designed to want to stay up later, but therefore sleep in later. But unfortunately, society hasn't kind of caught up with the research yet. So, school times are still early, a little bit too early, perhaps, some would say, for the teenage brain. So we need to be helping them understand what we can do to promote that sleep earlier, and so we limit the damage that not having enough sleep can do.
One last question. What is one habit or hobby that you've picked up during lockdown?
I've been walking more, trying to not use the car, actually changing the walk from a chore, a should do, as in must drag the dogs out, but actually factoring it in to be something pleasurable during the day. And of course, sleeping well.
Excellent. Thank you for taking time to talk to me, Kelley. I really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thank you for your time, Maddie.